so here we go with Unit 11, World War I, otherwise known as the Great War, and otherwise known as the War to End All Wars. We're also going to follow up when we're done with the Great War and tackle the interwar years, the war years years in between World War I, World War II, and what was going on there. So, as we usually do with most of our units in AP Euro, we take a look at what happened before the time period and how it's going to affect things over time. Major shifts in time are central to our big picture items that sometimes give us a little bit of trouble on the test. So let's dive in and take a look. At the beginning of the 1900s, 20th century, we've got Great Britain and France being the dominant part of the world, known as the West. But as we see, there's a shift in power, and the West, if you will, air quotes, is going to become the United States. So finally, we're going to get to see a little bit of our country join in with this AP European thing as World War I takes over. We also see some new countries on the scene there: Japan, China, USSR, that isn't even a country until this century, and of course how they become enemies and frenemies and then back to enemies. And as we continue on, the world getting smaller from ships, Suez and Panama Canal, into the railroads, into a more flattening of the world with planes, more ships, phones, computer, and the world shrinking over time. Also, politically speaking, diplomatic organizations. Diplomatic organizations. The Concert of Europe kind of started us off trying to restore those old world, old regime borders to Europe after Napoleon came onto the scene. And the 1900s are going to see the League of Nations rise and fall, and then the United Nations take over, which is still our centralized power today. Belief systems are going to change, and then you notice all those isms are still on the screen. Slavery's abolished, but then we colonize, and then there's going to have to be some decolonization. And we've also got a little bit of a feminist and civil rights movement cropping up, finishing things out. And then we go from, in the beginning, urbanization and deforestation with imperialism, industrialization, into a more green movement. So spend some time on this slide, just get to know it a little bit, because it's really going to finish us out between now and the test in May. So let's take a look at some long-term causes, and it's important to note here that you are going to have, of course, short-term causes, and we'll talk about those, the immediate ones that cause the world to go into the Great War. But we also need to look at the long term, the really what put those few key events into a situation where war would break out across all of the world. And that, of course, is going to be the new imperialism. We've been spending a unit on imperialism and what happened down in Africa, and then, of course, they have to have the Belgian conference, the Congo conference, to settle those disputes. And then the Ottoman Empire, is it shrinking back? We've got this powder keg in the Balkans, according to your crash course terminology there, the powder keg. We have problems going on in the Balkans that caused the Ottoman Empire, as the Ottoman Empire receded and left this vacuum of power. And so then we've got the Congress of Berlin taking over and kind of assigning rudimentary borders and saying you can have this place. And of course, Bosnia and Herzegovina are going to be formed, and other nations are going to be formed that are really going to cause some problems that are eventually going to lead to World War I. Advances in technology had made colonization easy. We should know that pretty well by now. Don't need to go into that too much after the last unit. Militarism. You need to take a moment and go out to Wikipedia and look up dreadnoughts. Take a look at the pictures. I've added a definition here for you. Battleships built for the in the 1890s to 1940s, similar to ironclads. So Germany's going to have this dreadnought class set of ships that are going to really get in there and cause them to be extremely powerful militarily, and also give them a little bit of power out in the seas. The Schliefflin Plan, I'm probably butchering that, but that's how I say it, um, was pivotal to this war. A new terminology, a new term that we need to know for this unit, with, and again, definition there for you on the sheet. It's a German plan for fighting a war on two fronts. We'll talk about what a front is, although I'm sure you guys probably know it after having read All Quiet on the Western Front. But we have two fronts, Eastern and Western, that is, again, very particular to World War One. And the German plan was that they would invade France very quickly, get it done in, 5, 6 weeks, and take over France very quickly on the Western Front before they had to deal with Russia over on the Eastern Front. And we're going to take a look at how that completely fails and sets up something else that is an icon for World War One. Mass production of weapons has got a line there, and hopefully you remember what caused this ability for mass production of weapons, and that, of course, is. Hopefully you've got it by now. You're guessing. If you guessed industrialization, then yes, you were right. Because they had the factories in place, they could quickly turn them over to weapon making factories, and especially in Germany, where they had the best of the best and the most recent technology, because of the second wave of industrialization, they could produce those weapons quite quickly. Nationalism is also going to play an issue, especially as we take a look at our short term causes of the war, but again, that intense pride in one's nation and people and the desire to dominate is going to play a major role in causing the ideas and kind of setting the scene for the Great War and the right to self determine. As they're making up all these new territories in the Balkans, they really weren't paying too much attention to what the people wanted, just what the major power players of the Congress of Berlin wanted, and that causes, again, those short term issues. It's also important to note that the political tensions back home are going to add to a desire for war. We've seen this in our country, so again, no pointing fingers because there's always three pointing back at you. That it's kind of easy, and again, easy with air quotes, to distract your country from the internal problems if you have an external problem going on. For instance, if you've got something going on in your house, parents are yelling at you, the first or typical response would be to try to deflect. And, well, did you know what my sister did to get in trouble? Or somebody else did it, so that you can detract. You can get the tension pointed away from you and what's going on in this case in your country, or in this case with you, to something else, and we see that with World War One. In Ireland, they had some major conflicts. We have talked a little bit about them in the last unit, with the high rent that they were having to pay to Great Britain. There was not exactly a lovey-dovey feeling, because again, Great Britain faced a contentious relationship with Ireland. Nationalist forces began to press for independence, while political opposites, the Unionists, expressed increasingly this idea to self-determine, the desire to remain part of Great Britain. So you had some that wanted to leave, some that didn't. Um, there were also labor conflicts going on inside of Great Britain that had resulted from overall stagnation of wages. We had seen the peaceful evolution rather than revolution, but again, labor conflicts are cropping back up. In France, you've got the Dreyfus affair. I always mispronounce that. The Dreyfus affair. And we've seen that with anti-Semitism. We talked about it in the last Socratic seminar, and of course, the decline of the Catholic Church. The people that governed France were openly hostile to the Catholic Church, which they considered to be anti-Republican. So they were trying to eliminate the Catholic Church from French life. Now, I would argue, this is totally me on the side, we saw that with the French Revolution. Didn't work out so well for Robespierre, but again, it has cropped up. Russia's got its own issues with the Russo-Japanese War in 1904. They had lost. They had the bankruptcy of the Tsarist state had become known at that time. Nicholas II has put the Duma, or the Russian Parliament, into place at an attempt at a constitutional monarchy. He had agreed to rule in conjunction, but in the years to come, he's actually going to once again really function as his own entity. We're going to see more of that on the following slides. Um, Russia has a major feel of socialist revolution. Their workers were getting fed up with the situation, and so they were in great fear of a socialist revolution. And in Austria Hungary, they had to deal with a constant problem of nationality. The Hungarian part of the empire, the process of Magyarization, or the mandatory dominance of Magyar language and culture, had created great hostility among the other nationalities. Magyars, again, are one culture, one nationality in Austria Hungary, in specifically Hungary, the other large part of Austria, the Austria Hungary, the original Austrian Empire. And they were really starting to push their culture on the rest of the folks in this area. So again, just as a review of what's going on in uh, with the Dreyfus affair, the wrongful conviction of the Alsatian Jew. Emile Zola again makes his name known. We've seen him previously um, in other units. He's the one that's going to blow the lid off of or expose the cover up. He's going to write an open letter entitled J'accuse, which is super famous, and you want to take a moment to write that down on the things I need to remember. He writes this open letter called J'accuse that reveals what's going on and how the Dreyfus affair really was not a Jewish thing, and it really reveals this anti-Semitism feel going on in France at the time. So we can thank Emile Zola for that. Also, just a quick refresher on the Duma, what it is, what's going on. So take a look at this. It's been starred again, so now would be a good time if I'm going to quickly. Please to remind you, you can always pause me. Wouldn't you like to be able to do that in class? You can always pause me and take a look at this in the time that you need. Now, it's always a good idea to take a look at the map, and we've done this quite a bit in these past few units, of what's going on before we start something new. This is a map of Europe after the Congress of Berlin in 1878, where they're really dividing up the Balkan territory as the Ottomans slowly start to move out. Notice Greece has become its own territory. Serbia has become its own territory. Look at how huge Austria-Hungary still is, especially if you think about how small Austria, the country, is today on our map. Poland, of course, has still been usurped as a part of Russia post Congress of Vienna. And now we've got a territory in here, the Bosnia-Herzegovina area. And that's why it's in these lines. It's got these shaded lines across it, because again, this is a new territory, and Serbia had wanted that territory for their own, and a lot of the Serbian officials still want it, and there is a movement, an underground movement called the Black Hand, that is going to come into play here, that is backed by, unofficially, air quotes, backed by the Serbian government. It's going to wreak a little bit of havoc in our World War I story here, as most of you well know. Also, notice up here you've got the German Empire. You've got this territory here in between France and Germany that's going to be heavily guarded by France. And notice, of course, there's this little country of Belgium that's going to play a major role, because when we see the Schieffelin Plan go into action, when Germany invades France, they realize if they want to do it quickly, that the best way to do it isn't to go through the heavily militarized zone down here on the border. It's just to take the back door in through Belgium. So Belgium's going to get the short end of the stick, and Germans are going to go straight through Belgium